Today on WBTV, we are going to be doing our beginner's guide to Dead by Daylight. How to rank up to rank 1. And these are going to be coming from a person, which is this person over here, that has made it to rank 1. And then a person who has recently made it to red ranks. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Okay, so I figured the best way to start is to start about basic gameplay. How you should go about playing the game from the time you spawn in to the time you ideally escape. And the big common misconception is that escaping is not the point of the game.
Yep. Escaping is the point of the game, but escaping doesn't necessarily mean winning.
No, you win by getting a pip at the end of the game. And for those of you who don't know what a pip is, at the end of the game there is a bar, and it has a black thing, then it has 2 white things, and the bar loads over with how well you played. And if you hit the black one, that means that you don't go anywhere. You don't go up, you don't go down. If you don't hit the black one, that means that you D-rank, so you lose a pip. And if you hit out of the first white one, then you get 1 pip. Hit the second white one, you get 2 pips. And depending on what rank you are, you need a specific amount of pips to move up. So rank 20, you need 3 pips. And then when you get down into like yellow, you need 4, I think. And then down into like purple, you need 5. And then down into red, you need 6 to move up in between these ranks. And that is how you're going to rank up. So that's the simple basics of it. You need to get that to rank up, and that's how you're going to rank up. But now we need to tell you how to get that. So starting with basic gameplay, as soon as you spawn into the game, doesn't matter what perks you have, what item you have, the first thing you should always do is get your butt on a generator, because most of the time the survivors spawn on the opposite side of the map of the killer, and most of the time you will have at least time to complete half of a generator before the killer finds you. And half progress is better than nothing, because as long as the killer doesn't have Hex Ruin, you can go back and pop that generator anytime in the game, or if the killer doesn't kick it. So that was what I would say at the beginning of the game. I don't know if you agree, but that's what I would always say.
I mean, I think so as well, but another thing, if we're going that this is like a beginner's guide, basically, a lot of problems I've seen with playing with some of my friends who are new to the game that they have trouble with, they have trouble finding generators. And for a while, Wade still had trouble finding generators. So specifically, in the game, how you find generators is generators will have a straight pole hanging up, and from that will be lights, and the lights will flicker on and off from time to time, and generally staying off, just flickering on, and that will signify that it's not done. So to find a generator, you always want to be looking up for that and going to those to prioritize gen work and getting them done. And only leaving a generator if you see the killer coming towards you. Don't be scared to stay on a generator just because you hear a killer's terror radius, because they could be chasing someone nearby, or they could completely not see you if they're a new killer. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that's a really good point. There is the fact that looking up and finding generators is a thing that newbies always struggle with. And if you're still struggling finding generators, you can run Deja Vu, which will highlight the nearest generators to you at all times. Or is it at all times, or is it when you pop a generator?
I think it's when you complete a generator and when you load into a match.
Okay. So yeah, that if you still have trouble finding it, that is always the one. And the other thing that helps is if you listen, because if you're close to a generator that's running, or that someone's working on, you can hear the sounds of
you'll hear
the gen
whirring
running.
and clicking.
Yeah. So that is another thing that I find helps. If you kind of know the general area that a generator's in, but you don't know exactly where it is, as long as you listen, it will help you find that area. So I guess the next thing we talk about is skill checks. So as you're doing skill checks on the generator, if you fail a skill check and somebody else is getting chased, keep working on the generator. Don't sprint away. And also, if you fail a skill check and the killer is close, don't sprint away, because the killer will follow your scratch marks. You'll be better to try to hide, make sure the killer comes up, kicks the gen, and then you can hop back on. Sprinting away just notifies the killer where you are, and you're basically inviting him to chase you. And if you're a beginner, chasing is not going to be your strong point, so definitely don't do that. Yeah,
prioritizing hiding or not being seen by the killer is always best. So, on what Wade mentioned are scratch marks. If you sprint anywhere or you hold down the sprint button, you leave invisible to you red scratch marks that can only be seen by the killer. And the killer can follow those tracks straight to where you were. That they only disappearing after 5 to 10 seconds. So, if finally the killer is coming towards you, you failed the skill check, he gave up on a chase with another survivor, or you got the gen to half, and he's finally come across the map. You see them coming at you, you can hop off the generator, hide behind a tree, or even into the cornfield, or behind a wall, depending on which map you're on.
Tall grass.
And the killer will break the generator, and then waste time looking for you. Even if you are then found and initiate a chase, you have wasted their time looking for you and not instantly chasing you off of the generator.
And another perk that I would suggest to go along with that, the best way that I found that I learned how to hide was using urban evasion, because it allows you to make a quick escape when the killer is close without leaving scratch marks. And I used urban evasion, and that was kind of the big thing that kind of opened my eyes to if I preemptively leave the generator and hide compared to running away, I can avoid a chase.
But now, say you are found by the killer and you're finally initiated into a chase, what you're going to want to do is you're going to look for structures or certain monuments, like the middle of the map, killer shack, or certain outcroppings, like things stacked up, or they're called jungle gyms or TL walls, where you have two massive walls opposite of each other that make a T and an L, and they have two windows in them, or a place where there's a window, a wall, another wall, a pallet in between, and then an L-shaped wall as well with an opening with a door. So, specifically, one thing that new survivors tend to have problems with is they will just run aimlessly around the map, or they will run in circles, or they will run to the very edge of the map. But these are things you don't want to do, because the very edge of map, running around aimlessly, running even to the middle of the map, depending on what map you're on, isn't really benefiting you, because eventually the killer is going to catch up to you, because they are a certain percentile quicker than you. So, you need to utilize windows or vaults and pallets to avoid the killers hitting you and put something in between you and the killer.
And there are two different types of vaults. Well, there's three different types of vaults. So there is a slow vault, which you do when you're not running. And a slow vault it does not notify the killer where you are, but however, the killer can grab you, number one, off the vault, which is an insta-down, put you on his back, or the killer, it's very easy for them to get a hit. Secondly, there's a medium vault, which is when you sprint towards a window on a diagonal. So if you don't sprint squared up with the window, you won't get a super fast vault. It will be faster than a slow vault, but not as fast as a fast vault. So when you're in a chase, the best thing that you can do is square yourself up perfectly with the window, because that will maximize the amount of distance you're going to get between you and the killer once you complete that vault.
With Wade talking about vaults and then I'm mentioning pallets. How you want to use these is a lot of new survivors will just sprint to a pallet, instantly drop it. This is not what you want to do. Specifically with pallets, if you just have one pallet or you have a combination of a pallet and a window, you want to run around the structure, or what it's called, loop the killer. So you avoid them and put distance in between you and them, or trick them and try not to get hit. So if you have a window and a pallet in a jungle gym, you run through the pallet and then keep vaulting the window and keep running around, and so you can get yourself squared up and running through the window constantly as the killer follows you and trails behind you. So they will either have to walk all the way around the structure or vault the pallet slower than you do, because you actually vault windows quicker than they do, and they can't vault pallets except for the Legion, that is. So, specifically with pallets now, if the killer is right behind you and they can easily lunge and hit you, that is when you drop a pallet. However, if you get to a pallet and the killer is miles behind you, you either keep running to put more distance in between you and run to another pallet or another set of windows, or you wait on the opposite side of the pallet. So because a pallet is positioned in between two walls or two structures. So you'll have two walls and then the pallet side it up, like right beside it. So you continue to loop around the one wall and around the pallet until the killer is right behind you and can swing and hit you, and that is when you drop the pallet. And that is only when you drop the pallet, because that provides you with 30 more seconds you're delaying the killer and 30 more seconds of use of a single pallet, instead of just newbie survivors running to a first pallet, dropping it, killer breaking it, sprinting, insta dropping another pallet, and then by the end of the game or the middle of the game, you have no more pallets to drop and use as a defense against the killer. And it's going to be much harder to use just windows to survive and not get downed in a chase.
And the best thing to do is, as Blake was kind of saying, the way that I would say it is maximize your resources. So, especially with pallets, because you cannot, once you drop a pallet, it's done. You can vault it, but once the killer breaks it, it's gone. So with pallets, you really want to try to conserve your pallets. If you waste all your pallets instantly, you will no longer have any pallets for the rest of the game, and you'll be relying on windows, and you will constantly find yourself in a dead zone while you're in a chase. So maximizing pallet use is ideally the best thing that's going to allow you to try to rank up from bottom ranks. Another thing is, think of your chase as allowing your teammates to complete generators. So whenever you are in a chase, ideally, all of your other teammates should be working on either generators together, generators apart, unhooking somebody else who's already been hooked, completing tasks that need to be completed. So when you're in a chase, you're considering yourself as the distraction. You're keeping the killer occupied from them not going and finding generators, kicking generators, and other things like that. So you want to try to maximize the amount of time that you are in the chase, and you don't want to bring the killer towards anybody else that might distract them and make them go chase somebody else. Because a good Dead by Daylight player will chase the killer enough so they can complete one gen, then they get hooked, and that's how you go. Every teammate gets hooked once, you complete all 4 gens, and you all escape, and that would be a perfect game in a Survivor world.
Yeah, think of a chase as not, oh, I can't get down here. Don't think of it like that. Think of it as, I need to stall the killer for longer. Don't worry about dying or getting downed. You have 3 hooks for a reason. You are supposed to get downed at the end of the chase. Not every chase is going to be a one chase or a win chase. And if you watch YouTube videos where survivors loop the killer for the entire game, you'll have certain scenarios where you will be better than the killer, and if the killer continues to loop you, that is an example of a bad killer, and you are doing a good job. But then again, those are unrealistic circumstances for a newer survivor, So what you should be prioritizing is stall the killer for as long as possible. And you will have good chases and long chases, and you will have bad chases where you'll go down immediately. But it's all about improving and learning how to do that better.
Next, I guess we'll talk about unhooks. So
when you get downed, yeah.
Once you get downed, the number one thing that low rank survivors don't do is recover. You need to recover when you get downed. Unless you are either full recover or you are downed in basement and you're going to try to crawl away so you don't get hooked in basement, or you're down near basement. There is no point in crawling. Crawling does nothing. When you recover...
Crawling actually kills you quicker. It is a mechanic in the game that when you crawl, you bleed more, and you have a meter that you will die sooner if you crawl, instead of recovering and making it easier for your teammates to pick you up.
Yes, exactly. When you recover, you make it so a teammate can tap you for 15 seconds and pick you up instantly. That is why you need to recover, especially in a state where you are downed and your teammate is being chased and nobody else is alive. Recovering is more important than crawling towards the teammate. The only time that you ever crawl is if you're crawling away from basement or you're crawling towards hatch. Other than that, every time you're downed, you need to recover, because that's the most important thing. To get next to hooks. So you get hooked, now it's time for someone to come save you. So one of the big things that a lot of the major mistakes people make is they unhook instantly, which is ideally not the greatest use of time. You have all this time where that person is on hook. You can use that time to work on generators, and ideally you should unhook at the last minute, because that will keep the killer occupied for the most amount of time. Either if they're a killer that face camps or proximity camps and they're trying to guard that hook, then definitely doing as much gen work and unhooking at the last minute makes the most sense, because it allows that killer to be occupied for the most amount of time and allows you to get more work done.
And yeah, as Wade said, a thing that newer players, newer survivors have a problem with is that they unhook while the killer is nearby or the killer had just hooked. What you want to do is, if you're by the hook, you want to hide or continue doing a generator and wait until you know and can confirm that the killer is away from the hook. And if you are hiding beside the hook, you can do this by listening to the terror radius or the killer's heartbeat. And after that music has gone away and the heartbeat has faded, that is the time you should run over to the hook and unhook, when the killer is as far away as possible and you can make a safe rescue. The only time you should unhook while the killer is in range or right beside the hook is if they are a face camper and they are sitting right beside the hook and your friend is going to die.
Or they're going to go to second stage.
Yes, or going to second stage. And specifically, there is a perk that can be used to make this situation better. Borrowed time. And I've mentioned this multiple times on the channel. That is one of my favorite perks and one of the perks I prioritize using in every single build. If you are in the killer's terror radius, you unhook a survivor, and now if they get hit, instead of going down, they get the deep wound effect applied to them, and they need to recover in the next 15 seconds while not in a chase, or they will go down. And if they are in a chase, the timer is paused.
They also just extended the deep wound status for 20 seconds, so makes it even
there
better.
You go.
In addition to that, if you don't have borrowed time and you have to make an unhook because the killer is face camping, you need to put either you need to take a hit and then pull the person off hook, because you've taken a hit, the cooldown from the killer after they hit you allows you to make that unhook without being grabbed. And then second of all, if you can't take a hit but the killer is coming very fast, you need to put yourself into the killer in front of that injured survivor, because as we're going to talk about later with the amount of how you're going to rank up, if you make a bad unhook, it looks bad on you, and it makes it harder for you to rank up. So you need to put yourself in front of the killer, take that hit, so that survivor can make a clean getaway without getting insta-down and put right back on hook. And then I guess finally, you do unhooks, you do generators, you've completed all 5 generators, it's time to escape. There's a couple of good things to think about. Oh, healing. When you unhook, the best thing to do if the killer's not around is to heal on hook. Right there. As soon as you drop him off hook, heal right there. It's the most efficient use of your time. I see a lot of low ranks sprint into the corners of the map where there is nothing to keep you safe and heal. And that is a complete waste of time.
Even if you're scared that the killer is coming and you don't want to heal right on hook, right in the vicinity where they know they hooked that person, and you want to go someplace safer to heal or someplace to hide, the best way to do this is not run to the corner of the map, not run to the edge of the map, not run out in the middle of the open or hiding behind a tree. What you want is you want to put yourself beside a propped up pallet, an unused pallet, or some windows. So you have an easy escape if the killer comes while you're healing.
And then finally, exiting. So once the game is over and you're running to an exit gate, if there are 2 of you, the most important thing to do is to have one person on the door and the other person standing behind that person to take a hit. And if there's 2 of you and one of you are injured, you always want to put the injured person on the door, because that will keep that person from being downed and picked up. This is especially important with killers that have range attacks like Huntress, where you could be sniped by a hatchet and you don't actually see them. That means that if you get sniped by a hatchet, you can take a hit, and the person on the door has enough time to make a getaway without getting insta-downed. And then once you exit the door, if you are healing and the killer is near, you need to do that last minute heal right on the edge of that exit. Because then if you get hit, you fall out of the exit and you escape, and you don't get picked up and put on hook, and then you don't escape.
And also, there is an alternative means with endgame collapse. If you can't find the doors, or if you're the last person left, it is very difficult to open an exit gate without the killer finding you. So, if you have a key, or which is an item, or you are the last survivor alive, hatch will open. And it'll be a little hatch on the ground that normally spawns on the lowest level of the map, excluding basement in Killer Shack or basement in its in its key spawning location. And it will open, and you will hear a loud auditory sound and a black, shadowy thing with the open hatch, and you want to look and listen for that, as it can spawn anywhere randomly on the lowest level of the map. However, the killer can close this hatch, and if they close the hatch, then your only escape is to open the exit gates.
Exactly, and that can become very difficult. So it is always best when you're running around during the game to try to locate hatch as soon as it spawns, or to try to just there's no worry about running around in the middle of the game looking for it, but just keep your eye open for it, and if you do see it, mind where it is, so then it might come in handy later.
And hatch only spawns when the amount of generators are equal to the amount of survivors plus 1. So say there are 3 survivors left, that means the hatch will not spawn until 3 generators plus 1 are complete. So the amount of survivors plus 1 for generators. So if you have 3 survivors, you'll need 4 generators completed before the hatch spawns.
The only exclusion to that is if you are the only survivor left, then hatch will auto spawn. And another thing with hatch that some people don't understand is that with a lot of killer powers like Victor being on your back with the twins, or having a bear trap on your head with the pig, the effects that you will get by dying or not being allowed to escape in an exit gate do not apply to hatch. You can escape hatch with either on your head without being killed. So I think we'll call that it for this part. Next week on Monday, we will talk about how you can apply all of these strategies into your gameplay to be able to rank up. So there's different things that all this applies to apply to the getting a pip. So I think we'll split that up into two because I don't want to make this video too long. But thank you guys for watching this episode of WBTV. I hope all of these gameplay prefaces help you, and I mean, you're also helping us because we don't have to deal with playing with people like that. But thank you guys for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, share it with your friends, share it with your family, share it with the guy at Freshco. Do you have anything else to say, Blake? No? And like, comment, subscribe, and we will see you guys in the next video. Thank you guys for watching WBTV. If you want to see more videos like this one, click the video on the right. If you want to see skits, click the video on the left. And make sure to click that subscribe button so you don't miss a single video.